Well, greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome back to tonight's second half. Tonight, I have a couple of encounters that I really would like to share with you. Before we get into it, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. The links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. My merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe, click the like button, and please leave a comment. It really does help, and guys, it definitely matters. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with tonight's second half, shall we? Today's first subscriber encounter from Idaho is actually one of the very first subscriber sent encounters that really messed with me. And after I'm done sharing it with you, you will see why. Hey Jeff, my name is Redacted. I am a 47-year-old female from Idaho Falls, Idaho. I grew up in Idaho, and I am an avid animal lover, especially wolves, since I was very young. I am writing to tell you about my Dogman encounter when I was around 16 or 17 years old. It would have been around 1986 or 1987. I had graduated from high school in '89. Before this encounter, I believed in spirits, but thought these things were just myth. Legends told by adults to scare the children into staying inside at night. I loved the night and feared very little that was out there. I have grown up camping, fishing, and going on hunting trips. I don't hunt, but members of my family do. With my family, and I still love to do all of these things to this day. I don't fear the woods, but I am extra cautious in them now that I know that these things are out there. Anyway, myself, my friend L, a female, and my other friend B, a male, decided one night to go to our local cemetery and look for what is called the knocking grave or the werewolf grave. We found the knocking grave and discovered that it was just a loose board which vibrates back when you knock on the grave. We never found the werewolf grave, so we just chalked it up as being a myth. We decided to go back to the car, and we were talking when L and B decided they wanted some alone time. They were a couple back then. I got out of the car and decided to walk around the cemetery by myself. It was a beautiful night with a full moon shining above. Ironic, I know. I was walking along looking at old gravestones and thinking how sad it is that so many people are completely forgotten after they die, when I heard a strange sound to my left. I was standing near a mausoleum looking down into another part of the cemetery. I heard the sound again and started walking toward it. It sounded as though something was crunching on something. I stood there for a moment listening. I immediately noticed how quiet it had gotten in the cemetery, and the hair stood up on my neck and arms. Usually, there is noise from cars or dogs barking or crickets or something like that, but there was nothing. I then saw a silhouette of something big and black standing a little way from me, around 20 feet away to be exact. Something told me to back away slowly and leave now, but I ignored it. I crept closer to the creature, never taking my eyes off of it. My eyes had adjusted to the darkness, and I could see very well, especially with the moonlight helping light the night. What I saw terrified me and also piqued my curiosity. The creature first looked like a huge wolf, but the front legs and torso were abnormally large, and the back legs were huge as well. It had a long, furry tail behind it, just like a wolf's tail. The head was huge, and it had long, pointed ears, with tufts of fur at the tips, from what I could see, and it was leaning down and was eating something. The sounds I had heard was the crunching it had made when it bit into whatever it was eating. I was excited because I've always wanted to see a wild wolf and thought that was what I was looking at. I figured that maybe a wolf had escaped from the zoo, which is right next door to the cemetery, and had caught a rabbit or something. I realized, though, that the zoo didn't have any wolves in it, and hadn't had one for years. I stared at the creature for about a minute or so, then I shifted my legs to get more comfortable. I must have stepped on a twig or scuffed my feet because the creature suddenly stopped eating, looked up and turned its head my way. It then stood up on its hind legs and I heard a loud pop. That's when I realized this was not a huge wolf. It was black and had a few brownish streaks in its fur. When it stood up, I saw its head, chest, stomach, and lower body. The shoulders and chest were massive and covered in fur that tapered down as you looked at the stomach area and legs. It reminded me of a bodybuilder on steroids because of how muscular it was. As it stood there, it started to sniff the air, and it stopped and stared my way. The eyes were a deep orangish gold and seemed to glow in the moonlight. It looked at me, and I felt a fear grow deep within me that I had never felt before. I knew it saw me, and I knew I had made a huge mistake by not leaving when I first got that bad feeling. It felt as though everything went cold and this creature could see within my soul. It stared at me for a moment, and then it opened its mouth and bared its teeth at me, as if it were smiling. Its teeth were huge and yellowish white. It looked sharp, just right for ripping its prey apart. It never took its eyes off of me. It then lifted its arm and took a bite out of whatever it was eating. I then realized the sound that I had heard was it crunching bone and tearing flesh as it ate its meal. The hands were like elongated paws, and at the end of each finger was a huge black claw that gripped the leg of what it was eating. I stood there watching it eat for what seemed like hours, when it could have only been a few minutes. It never took its eyes off of me. The fear I felt overwhelmed me. I felt sick, and I was visibly shaking. And so I did the one thing I had been taught never to do when confronted with a predator. I turned and ran as fast as I could back to the car. I did not care. I couldn't get his eyes out of my head, and that smile, those teeth. I could imagine it catching me and ripping me apart, tearing me to shreds as I ran. I made it to the car, though, flung open the door and jumped in, screaming for B to start the car and get us out of there. They asked me what was wrong, and I just yelled at them to go. B looked at me and saw the terrified look in my face, so he started the car and we left. I never went back to that cemetery again. Later that night, I told B and L what I had seen, and they both laughed at me and told me it was my mind playing tricks on me, which made me feel hurt that they didn't believe me. But I could hardly believe it myself. I saw a werewolf, or what is referred to as a Dogman, that I will never forget. I tried to find out more about these creatures, but all I could find out was more myth and folklore. I never told anyone else about it until recently when I told my 21-year-old daughter what I had seen. She believed me because she has seen things herself, and she knows I wouldn't lie to her, especially about something like this. She could see the terror in my face and hear it in my voice as I relayed the story to her as well. Since my encounter, I have had trouble sleeping at night. I can't sleep in the dark. I have to have a nightlight on. I will still have nightmares about it every now and then. I know this creature could have likely killed me with one swipe of its massive paw, but that night I was glad it had something else to preoccupy its time with. In my opinion, these creatures are ancient and have learned to adapt quite well to change. The change it faces with the population of man, the encroachment into its territory. I don't think they fear us because they know they have a huge advantage over us with their strength, speed, intelligence, and cunning, not to mention their arsenal of weapons. As crazy as it sounds, I am curious about these creatures and would love to learn more about them. These creatures are real and they are out there. Please be safe and aware, everyone. Thank you for listening. Same subscriber, different email. I promised that I would email you about what's been going on with me lately here in Idaho. I hope you saw my post. I haven't had much time lately due to work and life in general. You know how that goes. Anyway, we have 2 dogmen living in my parents' barn right now. I know one may think, but I swear this is what they are. I have seen them with my own eyes. There is one that is about 7 to 8 feet tall and another that is 8 to 9 feet. They are usually standing inside the barn watching me whenever I take my daughter's dog out to go outside at night with our other 2 dogs. We have seen tracks in the snow. I've heard howling at night when they are hunting in the canal that runs behind my parents' house. We have deer, raccoon, squirrel, moose, elk, coyotes, birds, and unfortunately pets, and also stray animals people have dropped off in the county. I know they are dogman because they look exactly like what I saw when I was 16 or 17 in the cemetery here where I live. I am not sure if you remember that encounter you read that I sent you. I am thinking maybe they are a mating pair. Anyway, my mom keeps seeing this shimmering light at night, and then I see these 2 dogmen in the barn, so I am leaning towards a camouflage of some sort. They are canine-type dogman, meaning they look like giant wolves walking upright on their hind legs. Honestly, and you might think I am crazy, but I think they are beautiful. Now, so far they haven't bothered us, and we have not bothered them, other than to shine a flashlight on their eyes to see the eye shine at night when I take the dogs out. If I see the shine, I know I'm okay. It's when I don't that I feel nervous. The other night the wind was blowing and the tarp that is stretched over the opening to the barn where my dad used to put his boat when he was with us was flapping around. I was watching the smaller one play peekaboo out through the hole that was in it from the many years that it had been hanging there. I had to laugh because it was just like a dog would do the same thing through a paper bag or something like that. It was so funny. They heard me laughing, and the one that was doing it snorted and kind of made a weird noise, like a cross between a woof and a growl. It sounded just like when my daughter's dog, who happens to be a German Shepherd mix, I think he's full-blood German Shepherd because he looks like it, starts making noises to let us know that he is hungry or needs to go out. He makes this woof sound, and that's what this one did. So that made me laugh more. The dogs were just staring at them, not making a sound. Thor, my daughter's dog, was looking over their way and sniffing and whining. Softly, it was like he knew they were there and also knew they weren't going to hurt us, but he was still wary. They've been out there for a week now and nothing's happened, so I've come to the conclusion that as long as they don't try to hurt us or our animals, they can stay in the barn as long as they want. I am sure they will move once the animals start heading to higher ground. The animals usually come down closer to people during the winter months because food's easier for them to find down here. The dogmen have a good water source as well with the snow we have had and the cattle and sheep ranches we have around here as well. I forgot to mention them as source of food as well for the dogman. I haven't heard of any attacks on any domestic livestock around here, so they must be hunting only wild animals or strays. Don't ask me why they haven't done the usual and tried to scare us, but I believe in let and let live. As long as they stay away from the house and our pets, they can stay. Anyway, I wanted to share this with you because I trust you and I know you won't think I'm crazy. I showed them to my mom the other night and she went pale as a ghost. I don't think she believed me when I told her we have 2 dogmen out in the barn. Anyway, I hope this email finds you well. Third email, same subscriber. Hey Jeff, I hope you are doing well. I'm not sure if you remember me, but I am the one who sent you the story of the dogman encounter I had as a teenager in the cemetery in Idaho. I am writing to let you know something that happened tonight as I was listening to one of your dogman encounters. I was listening to Dogman, the Terror in the Woods tonight. The story about Dogman at Hebgen Lake or what we refer to as Quake Lake in Idaho, suddenly brought flashbacks to me. Hebgen Lake is not too far away from the place my family loved to go camping when I was young. I still love to go there to this day. Cliff and Wade Lakes in Montana. They are beautiful freshwater lakes, and they are in a hidden valley, and the water is a beautiful blue-green color. It's so wild and pristine there, and I absolutely love it. I could live there, maybe. Now I'm not so sure. I remember being a young girl and walking on some of the game trails in the forest around the lake. My mom never liked me going on these walks by myself because there were grizzly bear and mountain lions there. I never worried about it, though. The forest was my home. It still is. Anyway, I was walking along and I found some strange tracks. They looked like big dog tracks, and being young at the time, maybe 11 or 12, I never thought much about it. I thought maybe someone had a big dog up here and took him or her for a walk in the woods. Now that I think about it, they were abnormally large wolf-like tracks. I remember following these tracks and they led to a meadow. I stopped in the middle of the meadow because it felt like I was being watched. I got an overwhelming feeling of dread and I wanted to run, but as I said in my previous encounters, I was taught never to run from a predator. I never thought about it being a dogman because I had never heard of such a thing, and werewolves didn't exist, so I was thinking more along the lines of a bear or mountain lion possibly. Well, when the hair started to rise on the back of my neck, I turned around and walked cautiously back towards camp. I remember the stillness of the forest, as if even the trees were holding their breath. I heard something behind me and to the left of me walking. And at that time it never struck me as odd, but now that I'm thinking of it, they were bipedal. I say they because there were two of them. I got glimpses of them through the trees. They were tall, and one was brownish color while the other one was black. I couldn't tell exactly what I was looking at. I caught glimpses of a dog-like head, a tail, that was about it. They were very fast, blurs mostly, when I could catch a glimpse of them. I could tell by the way they carried themselves that they were at ease in the forest. They never stumbled once over fallen trees or brush. They never made much noise either. I only noticed them following me because I had very good hearing at the time and I had exceptional sight. I honestly didn't think much about them. I just knew they were watching me, and I thought that maybe they were just curious like I was of them. They never growled at me. I never stopped walking, and when I got out of the woods and started walking back on the road and went towards our camp, they stopped following me. Jeff, I went back there many times. They never once bothered me. They gave me the feeling that I shouldn't be there, but they never really showed themselves fully to me and never tried to harm me in any way. I could have become a missing 411 had they decided I was a threat or maybe something on the menu. I never would have realized this until the day I heard the story tonight. I grew up around these creatures and never even knew it. I've let my own daughter wander those same paths. I am a little freaked out now and trying not to panic. I don't know what to think now. I love that area and would go back again, but now I don't know if I would allow my daughter or her husband to go walking off in the woods there. It's going to take me a while to process this because I am literally sitting here thinking about all of the times I went walking through that forest by myself, and I know they were watching me. I never feared them really. I only had a very big respect for their boundaries and listened to my inner feelings and left when I knew I needed to. No, don't worry, I will be okay. I've been dealing with my main encounter for a long time. Now I just gotta come to grips that I've been surrounded by dogmen all my life and never knew it. Wow, just wow. Thanks for bringing back those memories. LOL, no worries, man. It's a good thing. Best regards. I just sent her an email asking very nicely if she would be willing to come on the channel. Of course, anonymity is always respected. and share the encounters, talk about what she felt like on an interview. Hopefully she says yes. I know sometimes people are willing to share and have me narrate their encounters and not come on, but I really think when people share it in their own voices and you can hear how they feel, that actually helps other people come out and share their encounters, because it really kind of solidifies, hey, I'm not alone. There are many others like myself that have had these encounters. I find it in every community that you look at, UFO community, hauntings. You hear more and more people in their own voice share, and that makes you want to share as well. So, moving on to the next Idaho encounter. Today's final Idaho subscriber encounter. Hey Jeff, I just listened to your video yesterday and I appreciated its content. It made me want to share an encounter that I had experienced approximately 10 years ago while in college in southeast Idaho. I went to a local area of public land a few miles outside of my college town to blow off some steam and stress and to hunt, so I brought along my .22 in case a squirrel or rabbit crossed my path. The reality was I could care less if I brought home some game and really just wanted to get away from the stress of school, the endless papers to write and books to read and all that. It was an overcast and cool day in the very early spring. The trees and bushes had not yet begun to bud or bloom. I had made my way slowly through a clearing, just enjoying nature and all the sounds and smells of the woodland. I decided to sit on a large fallen tree and be as still and quiet as possible to see if any animals may come around after a time. This I did maybe for 15 minutes, just relaxing and meditating in nature. At some point I heard the very cliche but very distinct crack of a breaking branch as something heavy stepped on it a short distance from me. Not wanting to startle whatever it was, I slowly scanned with my eyes without moving my head. I'm pretty familiar with the wilderness and consider myself a very observant person. I'm used to looking for outlines of animals and not necessarily their movement. As I scanned with my eyes, I saw a very large deer head above some dogwood brush about 40 feet in front of me and to the right. Now these brush were about 6 to 7 feet tall. Pretty easy estimate for me as I'm over 6 feet tall. So I'm thinking, cool, that's a big mule deer buck. He must be standing on his hind legs to get some shoots or something. I decided that it was unaware of my presence and wanted to get a better look at it, so I quietly stood and crept closer. I must have done something to alert it, because no sooner had I done that than it took off running. And when I say running, it was running on its hind legs. I know this because I could see some sort of limbs flailing about in front of it as it crashed through the brush, and its head stayed above the top of the dogwood brush for at least 150 feet until it was out of sight. At that time, I discounted all forms of paranormal. I was studying hard science at the university and was very evidence and objectively minded. I made no connection to this and the supernatural. However, immediately after it ran off, I had this very sick, heavy feeling in the pit of my stomach, like something was not right. And I was no longer at peace and relaxed feeling in the woods. I left and didn't think about it for several years. I am now of the opinion that I had an encounter with a deer man. Thanks for your time, Jeff. Keep up the good work and your excellent encounters.
Wow, some really terrifying encounters right there. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in and supporting tonight's second half and the channel. It really does mean everything to me. Everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Great Spirit watch out for all of us and may guide us down the path that we call life.